Whitney. Yes. Please remain standing for the singing of our national anthem. Mrs. Mary France, Chairperson, School Committee. Mrs. Evelyn Thoren, Vice President, PTO. Mr. Charles Scoggins, today's speaker. Dr. Richard Moser, Superintendent. Deans Bernard Battle, Jeffrey Doherty, Alan Thomas. Esteemed members of our faculty, all distinguished guests, and most proud parents, grandparents, family, and friends, I am honored to welcome you to our soon-to-be sunny commencement ceremony for the class of 1996. To introduce our salutatorian for the class of 1996, I call to the podium a young woman from the class of 1996 who is not only an exceptional student, but a most sensitive and caring individual, a truly nice person, and a good friend to our salutatorian. I am pleased to introduce to you Maureen Long.
Thank you. This evening, I'm honored to introduce to you a very good friend of mine. Hong Van Lee came to the United States from Vietnam at the age of 7, speaking no English and knowing virtually no one in an alien country. But over the past 10 years, she has made many friends and has achieved an astounding amount academically. She is a wonderful friend, caring and compassionate, and I am proud to know her. She is also persistent and one of the most hardworking people I have ever met. Through 4 years of high school, she has skillfully balanced her family, her friends, a part-time job, her demanding school schedule, as well as maintaining a sense of her cultural heritage. She has served as the co-captain of the math team, president of the French Honor Society, and a member of the computer team, which competed in Maryland last month. She has worked very hard to get where she is, and I wish her every success next year at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I am privileged to introduce to you the Salutatorian of the class of '96, Hung Van Lee.
The class of '96 has earned the right to be here today with our numerous achievements throughout the past 4 years at Chelmsford High School. We stepped into the doors of Chelmsford High as clueless teenagers. Today, we walk out as young adults with a better consciousness of ourselves and our future. Yet, we could not have come this far without the help of others. Therefore, today is not only a day for the class of '96, but also for the people who have helped guide a group of young teenagers to the right path to adulthood. Our parents, relatives, teachers, faculty, and friends have touched our lives in so many ways. To our parents, who have shown us constant love, support, and encouragement as we make our journey in life, we say thank you. Thank you for wanting the best for us, for letting us make our own mistakes, for being there unconditionally, for getting us back on track when we strayed, and for believing in us. To our teachers, who have dedicated their lives to open a world of knowledge for their students, we give you our respect and gratitude. You have inspired us to try the unknown, challenged us to the point of frustration, encouraged us when we wanted to give up, and promoted our talents. The gift of knowledge that you have given us is one that we will always cherish and carry with us in life. To our friends, who we can always count on, we give you a smile. We have shared secrets, emotions, and laughters together. With you beside us, we are ready to face any obstacle in life with optimism. Upon graduation, a long journey still lies ahead of us. At times, we may need a helping hand, but we must complete the journey ourselves. The life we live reflects the choices and actions we make. Growing up is about realizing that there are people to guide us along the way, but ultimately, we are responsible for our actions. Today, the class of '96 accepts this responsibility as we embark into the future with pride and confidence as Chelmsford High School alumni. Good luck and best wishes to all.
Now it is my pleasure to introduce a young woman who has an extraordinary enthusiasm for life, balanced with the most sincere concern for others, a person who has united this class into one of the best to have walked our halls. President of the class of 1996, Deborah Lynn Sheehan.
Thanks, Mr. Mydell. Mr. Mydell, would you please join me at the podium? Mr. Mydell, on behalf of the class of 1996, it gives me great pleasure to leave you as a class gift a granite bench in remembrance of Mrs. Jan Silva. In addition to the bench, we are also giving you the class of 1996 Spirit Wall quilt. We are happy to donate this as a token of our appreciation. Thank you.
On behalf of faculty and students of Chelmsford High School, I accept these gifts. The gift of a bench in honor of Mrs. Silva reflects the caring demeanor of the class of 1996. The additional gift of the patchwork quilt will grace our corridor and keep the strong school spirit of this class present throughout the years as a model to all of our students. I thank you, class of 1996.
Ladies and gentlemen, faculty and students, class of 1996. I'd like to start off by thanking two people who gave their time, their sweat, and their tears to the class of 96. Two wonderful women whom without their advice, their dedication, and their talents, the class of 1996 would be half of what it is. These two women are not just incredible advisors, but two of the best educators this side of the Merrimack. I'd like to say that they've always believed in us, but I can't. No, really, these two women, though the bane of my existence, are the pillars of strength that I and the class of 1996 relied on throughout our years. Mrs. Coffey and Mrs. Swisban, on behalf of the class of 1996, I offer my sincerest thanks. Words cannot describe how much I'll miss you next year and what you mean to me. I'd now like to share with you a brief but touching story. There once was a little boy named Daniel. Daniel was a lonely boy. He never really liked school or sports or any of the other children in the neighborhood. While the other kids were outside playing kickball or swinging on swings, Daniel would go for long walks in the woods, usually alone. One day, Daniel was on one of his walks, this time taking a slightly different path. Alone as usual, Daniel was walking with his head down, kicking a stone and ignoring the beautiful scenery around him. Suddenly, Daniel stopped. He could go no further. Standing before him was a huge pile of rocks. Some of those rocks were prettier than others, but for the most part, Daniel thought these rocks were pretty plain. Well, Daniel thought to himself, these rocks aren't the prettiest rocks I've ever seen, but I think I'll pick some up and take them home. So Daniel began to take one, then he took another, and then another. Finally, after having 3 rocks put away in his pockets, he stopped. They were just too heavy for him. And as Daniel had previously stated, they really weren't the prettiest rocks he's ever seen, so why waste his time and energy picking them up and lugging them all the way home? So Daniel, the lonely and choosy boy that he was, walked home begrudgingly, holding on to these few rocks. The next day, Daniel woke up and went to put on his pants. As he stuck in one leg and then the other, a diamond suddenly rolled out of his pocket. Daniel stuck his hand in the pocket, and to his great surprise, pulled out 2 more diamonds. Daniel was in shock. He couldn't believe it. These plain, not so special rocks had overnight turned into the most precious gems in the world. Daniel looked at them sadly and thought, if I only knew that those simple rocks would be worth so much only a day later, I would have taken more. But Daniel didn't realize what sort of prizes he was passing over, and he'll forever regret it. We all are a little like Daniel. Our memories and times at Chelmsford High School are like the most precious gems in the world. And being the choosy boy like Daniel was, we may have passed over great opportunities too. Like that basketball we never went to senior year, or that play you never got around to seeing, or that dance that you just didn't feel like going to. We, like Daniel, didn't comprehend the beauty of those events, those rocks. And now we realize that they're over, and all we're left with are the precious memories. It's funny how, when we were in high school, little things like going to a school event was just something to do. But you know what? Whether we realize it or not, whether we realize it, I'm so messed up. Okay, realize it or not, being together, not just with our small circle of friends, but with everyone together. Goodbye, class of 1996, and thank you for the diamonds. This is Dave Anderson. I would now like to invite David Anderson, president of the class of 1997, to the podium. Yeah, right. Dave, it is my pleasure as the president of the class of 1996 to present you with this gavel, the symbol of authority and responsibility. The class of 1996 wishes you and the class of 1997 the best of everything in all your endeavors. We sincerely hope that you and your class will follow and uphold the fine traditions that have been established over the years at Chelmsford High School. Oh, God.
Deb, and graduates of the class of 1996, on behalf of the class of 1997, it is with pleasure and honor to accept this gavel. 4 years ago, you began your journey through Chelmsford High School, and today it ends. I hope that we as a class will be as successful as you were here at Chelmsford High School. The class of 1997 congratulates you for the fine example you have set during these years and will follow it with pride. I would like to thank the officers as well as your entire class for the wisdom that you have shared with us. You will be sadly missed, but never forgotten. May you always find peace and happiness, remembering the good times and good friends you had here at Chelmsford High School. On behalf of the class of 1997, I congratulate you on your successful journey thus far and wish you the best of luck and happiness in the future. Thank you.
I am honored to stand before all of you as the principal of Chelmsford High School, but in particular today as the person fortunate enough to have served his first principalship with a senior class that is not only exceptional in their academic achievements, in their athletic and extracurricular accomplishments, but a group of young people who have demonstrated a sense of commitment to their school and the greater community, as well as a sincere sense of caring, a maturing sense of responsibility, and a true sense of who they are and what they can do individually and as a class. Members of the class of 1996, it is in response to your positive personality, your unique warmth, that today the largest ever number of faculty volunteered to process in with you. It is due to your welcoming approach that your deans during your first 2 years at Chelmsford High School, Mr. John Conrad of Whittier House, Mr. Angelo Taranto of Hawthorne House, along with Mr. Ed Quinn, the first dean of Emerson House, and Mr. Don Boucher, the dean of the former Dickinson House, accepted the invitation of your deans and me to join them in celebrating your important achievement today. It is a credit to your community efforts that we are joined today by our state representative, Carol Clevin, town selectman, Susan Gates, Stuart Weisfeld, and our school committee members, Judy Millette, Wendy Marks, Tony Volpe, Angelo Taranto, and chairperson, Mary France. In honor of your positive reflections on our school system, we are also have in attendance Assistant Superintendent Dr. Karen Maza, Director of Budget Mr. Bob Krushank, and Director of Technology Mr. Bernard DiNatale. As I look out on the class of 1996, I see a patchwork of colorful, intricately quilted individuals of such exciting promise. Each of you, when you entered Chelmsford High School in 1992, brought some very special gifts, as well as a strong fabric of character. Your individual talents, your unique designs, gained notice as you joined your potential with other students in academic and athletic endeavors, as well as in activities of interest and service to our school and community. To help assemble this class of 1996 patchwork quilt, you selected two very caring and dedicated class advisors, Mrs. Denise Coffey and Mrs. Ann Swisburne. These two advisors, along with your enthusiastic and personable class officers, President Deborah Shee, Vice President Christopher Stiling, Secretary Joy Allen, and Treasurer Dave Crow, encouraged the class of 1996 to grow from a class too shy to sell beverages at baseball games to become the first class ever to sweep all the events of Spirit Week. This came as no surprise to anyone who attended the class of 1996 Halloween dance. For on that night, we not only learned that this class has as members Dorothy and her friends from The Wizard of Oz, but also a spectrum of superheroes. It also came as no surprise that the theme of the yearbook for this same class is heroes, for that is what you have been to our community and what you have encouraged others to strive to be. As we all look at this completed quilt, a most intricate patchwork of predominantly maroon and white, with a few splashes of fluorescent pink and green, true blue and sunshine yellow, we must not forget that this quilt was a long time in the making. Each individual that makes up this classy quilt is a reflection of a lifetime of love from family and friends, as well as the result of the dedication of your teachers, kindergarten through grade 12, all who patiently waited for the pieces to come together for not only for a day of display like today, but as a future giant comforter for our global world in need of your gifts and kindness and enthusiasm. In my first year as your principal, I have quite often felt the warmth of this patchwork class of 1996. As each of you continues on to be further educated at college, in the armed services, or on the job, you will continue to extend the dimensions of the spectacular quilt. To each member of the class of 1996, I, on behalf of our faculty and staff, commend your individual achievements, the daily challenges that you accepted and overcame. I applaud your ability to learn from your mistakes, to grow toward your potential, to share your talents, not only in this year's most successful talent show, but in your classes, at your places of work, among your friends. I especially thank you for the comfort you provided to all of us in the loss of our beloved colleague and teacher, Mrs. Jan Silver. And again, for helping me truthfully acknowledge and better understand the negative realities of our world which have intruded on our learning community. I also thank you for teaching me always to look up in the morning, high enough to see the top of our flagpoles. Thank you for inviting the staff and me to share so many good laughs and fun-filled times with you. And finally, I thank you for bringing a sense of caring to the community of Chelmsford High School, and for being not only students of whom I am most proud, but people I will continue to consider a very special patchwork quilt of friends. Rubber ducky and all. My first senior class, the class of 1996. Now it is my pleasure to introduce a colleague who has dedicated his life to serving students in the wonderful, rewarding profession of education. This year he has been an invaluable mentor to your rookie principal. He is a role model for all of you as an active lifelong learner, a man who continues to ask why, and then gathers a committee of colleagues and community members to answer his timely questions. As an educational leader, he continues to lead his staff in developing a school system dedicated to providing the best opportunities so that all students can learn and reach their potential. He has taught me to continue to look to the horizon, especially today, as well as the task before me each day, and to never lose sight of our students. Please give a warm welcome to our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Richard Moser.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think if you look around you, you'll notice that it's raining in almost every other town but Chelmsford, so we're really blessed today with some halfway decent weather. It's my honor tonight to introduce the guest speaker for the graduating class this year. And before I do that, I would personally like to offer my own congratulations and remind our graduating seniors that not only have you spent 4 years here in Chelmsford High School, but really many of you, almost all of you, have spent the last 13 years from kindergarten right on through 12th grade. So I stand here tonight with admiration for you and very kind words from many faculty members, from kindergarten teachers through second grade teachers, through high school teachers, and so on. So we've enjoyed being with you for these last 13 years, and we are very confident of your success in the future. Your choice tonight of a graduation speaker, I think, is a beautiful choice. The audience needs to know that the students choose the speaker every year, and this year chose specifically to invite someone to come and speak who is a graduate of Chelmsford High School. So we are here tonight to listen to Charles Scogans, who was a 1966 graduate of Chelmsford High School, and he stands before us as a real fine role model for all graduates leaving Chelmsford High School this year. While at Chelmsford High School, Charles Scogans was a very active student, particularly in the area of athletics. He was active in sports. He earned 6 varsity letters in indoor and outdoor track. He captained the indoor track team his varsity year and graduated with all sorts of fine experiences on the athletic field from Chelmsford High School. After graduating, Charles Scogans went on to Lowell State College, which today is the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. He has a bachelor's degree in history, has a minor in education. While at the University of Lowell, he worked on the student news called The Advocate, the newspaper, and really began his career working part-time with the Lowell Sun. After college, Charles Scogans joined the Army, where he served with distinction. He served as a stenographer for General Westmoreland and for the Chief of Staff, Creighton Abrams. He won the National Defense Medal and the Army Commendation Medal while in the armed services. After the service, he went directly to work for the Lowell Sun. He's been there for the last 27 years and has served mostly as a person who tells us all about the Boston Red Sox. He's chaired the Boston chapter of the Baseball Writers Association. He's been a voting member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, the New England Press Associated Award for the Best Sports Writer. He was the official scorer for the 1982 All-Star Game, the 1986 World Series, and the 1988, 1990, and 1995 American League Championship. I really first got to know Mr. Scogans when he was inducted into the Chelmsford Hall of Fame back in 1995. We recognize him today as an outstanding alumnus of our high school and just a wonderful role model for our students. So I look forward to introducing to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Charles Scogans.
Thank you, Dr. Moser. Was that really me? For those jocks of you out there, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but the word sports, you've just heard it for the last time in this speech. But hopefully there'll be a more appropriate time to discuss it. I do have a lot of good stories to tell. Anyway, good evening, and congratulations to all of you on the completion of your secondary education. 30 years ago, about a half mile from here at what is now the McCarthy Junior High School, I sat out there as you do this afternoon, anxious to flip my maroon and white tassel from one side of my mortarboard to the other and get on with the rest of my life, real life. While here, I was a mediocre athlete, despite what you heard, an indifferent scholar, an underachiever. I'm sure many of my former teachers here would agree. But the 4 years I spent at Chelmsford High were 4 of the most wonderful and fun-filled years of my life. And, by the way, I did learn a few things. The class of '66 was one of the best classes to graduate from Chelmsford High, at least I like to think so. And I wouldn't dream of missing one of our class reunions, which, coming as they do at 5-year intervals, come far too seldom. Yet initially, and I emphasize initially, I felt like an outsider here. All newcomers to New England do when we encounter that traditional Yankee reserve for the first time. I was 13 when my family moved here from Colorado and took up residence in Farms 1, which is a folksy euphemism for the first Chelmsford ghetto for outsiders. But I've lived in New England for 35 years now, and it is home to me. 8 years ago, when I met my dear wife Vicki and brought her here from Florida, she felt very isolated. New Englanders just don't exude that ready warmth and charm that Southern society does. But I advised her to be patient. After she'd lived here 200 years, they treat her just like a native. She only has 192 more years to go. But I'd like to thank Principal Stephen Meidel and the officers of the class of 1996 for inviting me here to speak, because by virtue of that invitation, today, after only 35 years, for the first time, I feel 100% accepted by the town of Chelmsford. And that means so much to me because after living in 9 different towns or cities, attending 6 different school systems, and visiting 42 states and 14 countries, I still regard Chelmsford as my hometown. I may live in Lowell, but Chelmsford is still home to me. Thank you. It's wonderful to be home again. As I've said, I always thought that the class of '66 was one of the finest to graduate from Chelmsford High. When we graduated 30 years ago, we really believed that we would go forth and make a difference in this world. I think every class believes that, and I hope that you, the class of '96, believes that too. But in retrospect, however, I'm somewhat saddened to report to you that I don't think my class fulfilled its promise. 30 years later, we have no presidents, senators, or congressmen, no world-renowned scientists, inventors, generals, or captains of industry. We have, for the most part, become ordinary citizens leading ordinary lives. Such is the reality of life, and there is no shame in that, only perhaps some inevitable personal regrets that we could have or should have accomplished more. But the reality of life is that while all of us dream of being the pilot of the mighty engine of progress, the cockpit is small, and the vast majority of us will be consigned to less glorious roles. Most of us are mere hands, but no less important than the pilot, because without our hands, there's not enough energy to drive the engine of progress forward, and the pilots can only sit there idle and helpless. But my biggest regret, not just for the class of '66, but my entire generation, is Vietnam. We were the last truly innocent generation, and I tell you, I'm glad we didn't have to face the pressures the kids of today have to face. But Vietnam robbed us of that innocence. It was a senseless war without genuine purpose or direction that eventually existed only to perpetuate itself and serve political agendas, enhance military careers, and enrich the manufacturers of weapons. More than 55,000 American lives were lost in Vietnam, and countless thousands of others ruined. But the major casualty of Vietnam was trust, one of the bonds of society that was shattered and to this day has not been repaired. All of us, including you young graduates sitting out there today, and your younger brothers and sisters, are victims of that breach of trust. Fathers who had fought in the Second World War, a noble war, stopped speaking to their sons and even their daughters who opposed the ignoble war in Vietnam. My country, right or wrong, our parents told us. Love America or leave it, we were told. Thousands left. Even those who became soldiers and went, often reluctantly, to Vietnam to fight were ostracized. They were shamefully shunned and spat upon by the resistors, the same kids they had gone to school with, and after the war, ignored by a nation that desperately wanted to pretend none of it had ever happened. Because of Vietnam and then Watergate, my generation, a generation that has so proudly and selflessly worked to win civil rights for all Americans, lost all respect for authority, the authority of our parents, the police, the law, our government. We became cynical and selfish, trust no one, live for ourselves and to hell with everyone else. We suffered and still suffer from narcissism bordering on nihilism. There was no honor, no prestige in public service, and the country to this day continues to suffer from a lack of quality leadership. Today I call on you, our children, to commit yourselves to changing the cynical, hedonistic, and self-destructive attitudes that have all but paralyzed this nation for the last generation. We can learn from you. Teach us, your parents, my generation, that it's okay and even important not to forget, but it's even more important to forgive. Only by refusing to forget can we assure ourselves that a national tragedy such as Vietnam will never happen again. But only by forgiving can we, as a society, finally move forward again. The Civil War of 135 years ago pitted brother against brother on the battlefield. This second Civil War, which has been fought in our hearts and minds for 35 years now and pitted father against son and mother against daughter, must end. The wounds that have been festering for a generation must heal. I implore you to give us a reason to trust, a reason to believe, a reason to respect authority again. You, the children, must lead us, the Pied Pipers of paranoia, back from the wilderness. Many of you will be going on next year to further your educations. The rest of you will be entering the working world. Regardless of which path you choose to follow, from now on and for the rest of your lives, nearly all the decisions you make will be entirely yours. Up until today, your lives have been sheltered ones. Many, if not most, of your decisions have been made for you by your parents and your teachers. I know you didn't agree with a lot of those decisions. I certainly didn't when I was growing up, and I'm sure some of them you hated. But hopefully, you learned some things during the first 18 years about making responsible decisions. Because in the future, the decisions you make will no longer affect only you, but often those around you. During a trip to Europe some years ago, I drove across the border from Geneva, Switzerland, into France, and quickly found myself in the center of a village from which several roads emanated like spokes from the hub of a wheel. I didn't have a map at my fingertips, but fortunately there was a signpost. One arrow read Genève. I knew that, of course. I'd just come from Geneva. Unfortunately, all the other arrows, every single one of them, had exactly the same thing written on them, l'autre direction, the other direction. Not much help, as you can readily imagine, especially someone who speaks limited French as I did. The point of this anecdote is that as you enter the real world today, making the right decision will not always be obvious or easy. Proper guidance will not always be readily available. Answers and solutions will not always be simple and clear. You will find yourselves at the confusing crossroads in a lot of figurative French villages during the years to come. You can't go back, and a decision must be made. You won't always make the right one. No one ever does. The important thing is to learn from your inevitable mistakes and not repeat them, nor dwell on them and allow them to make you afraid to make the next difficult decision that confronts you. Never be afraid or reluctant to admit you were wrong or say you're sorry. Take responsibility for your decisions, right or wrong, and don't look for scapegoats. Always remember that when you point your finger at somebody else, your other three fingers are pointing back at you. For those of you who are not going on to college or prep school, don't let your education stop here as you leave the halls of Chelmsford High for the last time. AIDS is not the scourge of mankind. Ignorance is. Ignorance has been mankind's greatest affliction since the dawn of time. Don't stop learning, and most importantly, don't stop trying to understand. It is the inherent obligation of every member of the human race to make the world a better place. As I said before, I'm somewhat disappointed that my class, the class of '66, never achieved the great things that we thought we would. We haven't properly addressed, much less solved, the issues and problems that divide America and the world today. But as I stand here before you this evening, I sincerely hope that you don't look upon me and my classmates as monuments to failure. Yes, I hope the class of '96 does better than we did, but 30 years of experience since I left Chelmsford High School has taught me that success is not absolute, but measured in degrees. And by that yardstick, I don't believe I'm rationalizing when I say that I think we have accomplished a lot of which we can be proud. Success is not just fame and fortune, adulation and congratulation. Andy Warhol's contention that everyone will be famous for 15 minutes simply is impractical. There are not enough quarter hours in the incessantly ticking clock of time to allow us all to take a bow at center stage. Yes, we would all like to leave a lasting legacy behind us on this earth, and you can, even if your legacy is not universally recognized and lauded. I encourage you to aim high, for seldom, and then only through blind luck, will anyone's grasp ever exceed his reach. Challenge yourselves. But I submit to you, the Chelmsford High School class of '96, that regardless of whether you go on to be president or a pipe fitter, a CEO or a CPA, a millionaire or a mechanic, a scientist or a secretary, a teacher or a trucker, a heart surgeon or a housewife, the true definition of success is this: if you reach out and make the life of just one other person a little bit better, not just for a minute, a day, a week, or a month, but genuinely better, then you have achieved a true and meaningful success in this world. So from my generation to yours, good luck. The future is now in your hands.
Mr. Scoggins, I thank you for your thoughtful words to our senior class, and I ask you to come back to the podium so that I can present you with this diploma, making you an honorary member of the class of 1996. And now to introduce the valedictorian for the class of 1996, I invite to the podium a young man who has demonstrated a high level of achievement in athletics as well as in academic endeavors. He is tall in stature and in character. It is my pleasure to introduce Scott Johnson.
This evening, it is my honor to introduce to you the valedictorian of the Chelmsford High School class of 1996, Ishan Anand. The only classmate I know to refer to his own research, Ishan is unique in his enthusiasm. In his quest to learn more, understand how, and discover why the world is the way it is, Ishan has always taken the extra step and persisted the extra hour. He has influenced many other students, friends, and teachers who have learned from his example and caught a little of his contagious excitement for learning. However, what makes Ishan truly special is that his intellect and hard work is accompanied by humility and compassion just as boundless. Earlier in the year, Ishan was nominated for Student of the Month. He pulled our principal, Mr. Meidel, aside and refused to be honored, saying he had received enough recognition already. He believed other students were more deserving. Mr. Meidel listened, and Ishan's picture never adorned the Student of the Month board. Personally, Ishan has been a great friend who is always honest, sincere, and accepting. He's always been there with a helping hand. His giving of himself to so many people is something I truly admire. Ishan's academic success and spirit of generosity have earned him admission to MIT, where, as it is his way, Ishan will succeed. I present to you the valedictorian of the Chelmsford High School class of 1996, Ishan Anand.
Thank you, Scott, or should I say Scotty J. So how's everybody this evening? Good? I thought so. Now I'd like everybody to take a little breather. Breathe in and breathe out. Come on. Follow along with me. Okay, fine. We can now breathe a sigh of relief and relax. It is finally here, graduation. Only a few more minutes, and we shall hold those precious diplomas in our hands. Well, a few hours if you count my speech. Faculty reminisce the legacy and era that the class of 1996 shall leave behind. Parents proudly await the crowning achievements of their sons and daughters. Students say goodbye and good luck to their friends. And everyone looks forward, pondering what the future may hold for these recent grads. Optimism is in the air, and it runs wild in the mind. Before we gaze ahead, however, let us first glance back. Glance back not to watch what we are leaving behind, but to recognize what has made us who we are. I believe it was that extremely famous French existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre who taught the world that we are all ultimately free in our choices, and that ultimate freedom also makes us ultimately responsible. In the final analysis, Sartre believed, the only person we can hold accountable for what we become is ourselves. But Sartre was wrong. While I can take full responsibility for my flaws, faults, and failures, I cannot honestly take full responsibility for my successes. We acquire a new part of ourselves from every person we ever meet, and these pieces combine together to form the sum of our experience. Each individual experience has altered us, effectively assembling a brand new self entirely. And tonight, we must pay homage to the people that have been behind the forces that have shaped our lives to make us who and what we are. Earlier this week, one of the recipients of a Tony Award approached the podium and gave his thank you speech. Quote, "I would like to thank everyone I ever met." End quote. We should also do the same, realizing that there are infinitely more people to credit than we can ever recognize in a finite amount of time. And even those encounters we have long forgotten may have unforeseen consequences upon the effects of our lives and our existence in future years. We must, of course, thank our friends, whose support and camaraderie carried us through good times and bad, and realize as well, for better or for worse, their opinions often sculpted our own. We must also thank the faculty. We came to school to learn, and there would be none of it without the enduring talents and efforts of our teachers, not just at Chelmsford High School, but throughout the Chelmsford public school system. The collective enterprise they have invested in us profoundly molded our attitudes and ideals. Our finest educators did not merely instruct the curriculum, but illustrated how to live. Mrs. Silva was of this class of teachers. Everyone knew she had the hardest working English class in school, and at the risk of sounding like my parents, it was hard work, but it built character. Students would leave her honors English class at the end of the year, both tending to their scars and bragging about them, simultaneously happy they had survived, yet sad it was over. I asked her last year why she was teaching honors English for another school year after she had told us ours would be the last one. She told me they couldn't get anyone else who would do it but me. Almost right. They couldn't get anyone else who could teach it like you. Mrs. Silva, both students and staff shall all miss you at this school. Last, but not least, we must thank our family, especially our parents. They have created us, both physically and emotionally. I often wonder in amazement what strange force it is that can compel normal men and women to sacrifice their own goals, money, time, and love to selflessly raise a child. I am even further shocked that many couples, after learning how truly difficult it is to raise a child, are gripped by a weird insanity and want yet another one. They are brave souls. And yes, we, the teenagers, will admit that on a few rare instances, mom and dad were right and we were wrong. Rare instances. Arguments aside, the effect of our parents in our lives cannot be debated. Just stop and think about it. Even the most simple actions we take for granted and perform daily, we owe to our parents. By their example, we learn language, beyond grammatical structure, beyond word choice. Even how we pronounce and say our words was learned from them. They taught us how to move, how to walk. They potty trained us. We could do none of these things without them. Every time we successfully talk, every time we successfully walk, and yes, every time we successfully go to the bathroom, it is a silent tribute to the success of our parents. Tonight, we must not let the tribute remain silent anymore. Tonight, we must say thank you to our parents. And I'd like the class to repeat after me, class of 1996. Thank you, Mom. Come on. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, family. Don't you feel better now? Now that we have looked backwards, we can look forwards. Now that we recognize who made us what we are, hopefully we have a better understanding of who we are. The future will hold change, but change will require us to first change ourselves. In the words of Carl Rogers, in the coming world, the capacity to face the new appropriately is more important than the ability to know and repeat the old. With this better knowledge of who we are, we can now appropriately face the new. Before I close, I would like to leave you with a poem. Thomas Campbell's The River of Life. The more we live, more brief appear our life's succeeding stages. A day to childhood seems a year, and years like passing ages. The gladsome current of our youth, ere passion yet disorders, steals lingering like a river smooth along its grassy borders. But as the cave-worn cheeks grow wan, and sorrow's shafts fly thicker, yea, stars that measure life to man, why seem your courses quicker? When joys have lost their bloom and breath, and life itself is vapid, why, as we reach the falls of death, feel we its tide more rapid? It may be strange, yet who would change time's course to slower speeding? And one by one our friends have gone and left our bosoms bleeding. Heaven gives our years of fading strength, indemnifying fleetness, and those of youth a seeming length proportioned to their sweetness. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Having heard our three students from this class speak, you now realize that my superlatives were worthy, and that this is indeed quite a unique group of people. Our school continues to offer the best opportunities for all students to not only reach their graduation day, but to be prepared to enter the world of tomorrow. Providing the best educational program for the future involves difficult decisions and the continued efforts to provide open communication among all members of our community. This crucial process is the foundation of public education. Public education continues to be the cornerstone of our American democracy. In Chelmsford, we are fortunate to have a school committee who is dedicated to providing the best that public education can offer. I now ask you to give a warm welcome to the chairperson of our school committee, Mrs. Mary France.
Thank you, Mr. Meidel. It's a great pleasure for me to be here this evening. I look out at all the graduates of the class of '96, and I can genuinely say that you are the reasons I choose to serve as a school committee member. And so tonight it is a very special honor for me to be able to present each one of you with your diploma. Your diploma signifies the completion of your formal education here in Chelmsford. In you, we as the school committee members, administration, and faculty see the fulfillment of the mission of the Chelmsford Public Schools. As all your honors and accomplishments and the words of your principal indicate, you are educated, self-confident, and responsible young men and women ready to make your mark on the world. But never forget, and to quote your class motto, the words of Winston Churchill, tonight marks the end of the beginning. Learning is a lifelong activity, and hopefully the Chelmsford Public Schools have prepared you well for your future education, be it in the formal setting of a classroom or in the informal setting of your own reading, questioning, and seeking out information. On behalf of the entire Chelmsford School Committee, I congratulate you tonight on your graduation from Chelmsford High School, and I wish you great success in all your future learning.
To emphasize the importance of parents and the achievements symbolized by a diploma from Chelmsford High School, each year we ask a member of the executive board of our high school PTO to assist in handing out the diplomas. This year, Mrs. Evelyn Thoren, Vice President of the Chelmsford High School PTO, will be assisting. And now, the moment you have all been patiently waiting for, the conferring of the diplomas.
Ooh. Testing.
Pardon me?
Testing.
I don't know. I think it's going to go at least this way. Move it back this way.
And then we'll move it to the other side. Perfect. On the rest of the diplomas.
Testing, testing.
Yep.
1, 2.
Yeah, all set.
We will begin with Emerson House Women.
Stand up. Stand up or sit down? I'm all set, yeah. Okay, yeah. Andy, let me know. Clarissa Tess Atwood. Audrey Catherine Bent. Kristen Jill Bishop. Christine Ann Bolia. Slower. Abigail Adams Brzezinski. Andrea Gail Burke. Alyssa Lynn Burns. Allison Ruth Burt. Amy Byron. Christine Elizabeth Carroll. Amity Lynn Castelot. Stephanie Hall Cavallaro. Milena Ann Chaput. Chaina Lee Ciardi. Carrie Ann Claremont. Sarah Elizabeth Costello. Catherine Lynn Crane. Kathleen Laura Cushing. Robin Jennifer DiCaprio. Tracy Robin Dennett. Felicity Marcia Dickinson. Sarah Elizabeth Dubner. Melissa Sue Eckhart. Alicia Gail Elias. Carrie Lynn Fleming. Bonnie Ann Gary. Tina Louise Gear. Allison Marie Gavoni. Victoria Marie Groves. Antoinette Marie Herring. Donna Marie Hovey. Nicole Elizabeth Hubbard. Tracy Georgia Ingalina. Jennifer Sarah Jefferson. Sorry. Yep. You have a problem?
Jennifer Sarah Jefferson. Anna Dagmar Johnson. Kimberly Ann Jones. Sarah Elizabeth Karakitsos. Katie Newton Castridis. Clois Kinnett. Rachel Miriam Kraft. Amanda Sue Laval. Hong Van Min Lee. Amy Lemaire. Stephanie Ann Liss. Elizabeth Teresa Long. Deborah Ann Lundgren. Kathleen Nora Marson. Jessica Erin McSheehy.
I'm missing a sheet. I'm missing a sheet. I'm missing a sheet. Boys. First. I don't have women on it. I don't have the names of the women. It goes right to the men. Right, Aaron, Kathleen, get you? That's not it. That's not it. We're missing a name. Where did we stop? Emerson? McSheehy?
No, we're doing Emerson. We're doing
Hawthorne Girls.
Hawthorne Girls.
Okay. Okay. Can you hold that for me?
Erin Kathleen Goodhue. Julie Ann Guineri. Ida Elizabeth Healy. Deanna Lynn Hovey. Emily Branting Hughes. Ani Sasi Jeknavorian. Robin Elizabeth Johnson. Joanna Lynn Jones. Jessica Lynn Kaplan. Elizabeth Joy Kelber. An Bao Ka. Ho Jung Kim. Jenna Renee La Rochelle. Elizabeth Ann Levita. Sarah Elizabeth Lazardo. Bao Thuk Lee. Courtney Ann Leary. Christine Marie Lavasser. Erin Marie Lichtenfels. Julianne Linehan. Julie Fawcett Lisevich. Maureen Devaney Long. Robin Lynn McGee. Jennifer Maureen Mangan. Laura Mary McCormick. Catherine Ellison McManman. Jody Lynn Medico. Brandy Michelle Merrill. Jennifer Alicia Moncrief. Megan Lee Moore. Victoria Ellen Morgan. Annette Marie Murphy. Jennifer Marie Austin. Catherine Jean Pelosi. Jessica Allison Peters. Sarah Jane Phelan. Jennifer Lynn Pino. Beth Ellen Papalizio. Kathleen Sarah Rawls. Alyssa Mae Russell. Kristen Marie Rocket. Dana Ann Rourke. Melinda Amy Sandler. Diana Lee Shepard. Stephanie Lynn Silva. Melissa May Sponholtz. Megan Kathleen Sullivan. Kimberly Eileen Shepkowski. Cynthia Beth Tebow. Marnie Beth Thompson. Julie Byrne Totten. Amy Beth Sakrinsis. Carrie Ann Vautour. Tricia Marie Weaver. Julianne Weldon. Jennifer Ann Willis. Meredith Ann Yetzko. Constance Ann Adams. Joy Tacey Allen. Jessica Robin Badger. Elissa Dawn Balboni. Karen Danielle Barabee. Alexandra Marie Bissett. Erica Mae Black. Amy Catherine Boudreau. Marie Elizabeth Bowen. Heather Rose Brown. Carol Lindsay Campbell. Genevieve Marie Castellot. Callie Chung. Megan Teresa Coughlin. Danielle Demers. Carrie Beth Dixon. Lelania Renee Dixon. Megan Elizabeth Donahue. Carrie Ann Dufresne. Melissa Jane Eisenman. Danielle He Ferry. Amy Marie Fisher. Jennifer Ann Fleming. Sandra Colette Forcier. Jennifer Ann Gavin. Lisa Jean Gibson. Lindsay Wallace Gibson. Yesenia Marine Torres. Kathleen Maria Notini. Shayna Athena Paleologis. Eva Rachel Price. Lisa Marie Quinn. Sarah Catherine Rains. Janice Dorothy Reese. Erica Claire Robertson. Leah Etchels Ramani. Christy Therese Salisbury. Tony Renee Sella. Rebecca Lynn Seamus. Laura Leanne Shields. Tasha Lee Stone. Emily Jane Sullivan. Heather Linnea Swim. Amy Elizabeth Trahan. Christina Marjorie Sandikos. Stacia Mary Tucker. Jennifer Ann Van Buren. Jennifer Kristen Weinbeck. Melissa Marie White. Jennifer Margaret Worth. Rebecca Tierlink Wright.
That work out? You got it. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, they're not up yet. Come up.
Adriano Thamesby Agostino. Ishan Anad. Joseph Alexi Bonin. Scott Patrick Barrett. Alvin Manuel Betancourt. Kevin Christopher Biondi. Jeffrey Sean Boyd. Seth Warren Brooks. Michael Andrew Cato. Scott Nelson Campbell. Stephen Michael Caponia. Charlton James Chen. Adam James Clough. Jason Robert Coolidge. Christopher Gary David. Jeremy Kenneth Davis. Brett Christian DeNatale. Michael Joseph Doherty. Manuel Fernando Duarte. Charles Gary Fiddler. Matthew Mulligan Fredette. Michael Irwin Freitas. Ryan Richard Gallagher. Clark Windsor Gapart. Brian Richard Gardner. Gregory Austin Gibbons. Mark Edward Gill. John Alexander Gontars. Brian Huntley Gray. Thomas Aquinas Griffin. Michael Daniel Harrington. Benjamin David Hermance. Randy Joseph Houle. Stephen Charles Halkauer. Benjamin John Hyatt. Umar Mohammed Imtiaz. Michael Charles Gerasitis. Dan G. Scott Gossick Johnson. Derek Walton Jones. Christopher Jason Keimig. Michael Kevin Kendrick Jr. Scott Lee Landsteiner. Michael Kenneth Lantang. Douglas James LeClaire. Timothy Michael Lewis. Mark Chanben Lin. Michael Vincent Lucino. William Douglas McDonald. William Hayes Maffio. Glenn Joseph Marr. Eric Leonard Major. Heath Richard Macula. John Franklin McCoy IV. Brian Jeffrey McHugh. Michael George McLaughlin. Michael Wayne Ryder. Jason Douglas Hawes.
Skip two.
skip to.
Benjamin Joseph Haley. Brian Patrick Harper. Patrick Dale Harrington. Russell Gordon Hines. David McAdam Howe. Jameson Hennessy Holt. Brian Frank Ingalls. Jeffrey Roderick Jurok. Justin Stephen Johnson. Christopher Daniel Jones. Joshua Jordan. George Chrysophilatus Karanastasis. Daniel Patrick Keegan. Keith Matthew Kinney. Charles Thomas Lemaire. James Anthony Lucantoni III. Jeffrey McDonald. David Scott McPhail. Michael John Mahoney. David Michael McAvoy. Oliver Baird McLaughlin. Joel Vincent Masidi. Paul Mihalides. Daniel William Mullen. Gaurav Bijal Nath. William Henry Normandin. Winston Spencer Oliver. Andrew James Pajak. Nicholas John Papadonis. Nirlap Bashek Patel. Joseph Albert Picard. Matthew Pomerleau. Christopher George Price. Jonathan Paul Quimby. Gregory Paul Rideout. Stephen Michael Rivard. Matthew John Russo. Christopher Eugene Sinetta. Matthew Peter Sexton.
Timothy.
Yep. Christopher William Styling. Brian John Stewart. Nick Straminos. Brian Thomas Sullivan. Brian James Tremblay. Brian David Tura. Demetris Varmatsis. Eric Douglas Vazella. Justin William Wooster. Andrew Jonathan Zabrick. George Robert Arsenault. Matthew Gerard Berry. Brian Curtis Bates. Christopher James Bevington. Jason David Bilodeau. Tove Burkhausen. James Frederick Beauvais. Nicholas James Brink. Thomas Stewart Bryant. John Dennis Buckley. Daniel Borowski Burns. Scott Michael Cahill. Brian Andrew Cantara. Jeffrey Stephen Carlin. Jeffrey Joseph Karen. Danielle Quincy Carr. Daniel, sorry. I know. Ready? Ryan Matthew Carter. Michael Kenneth Costa. David Michael Crow. Alan Peter Danielson. James Francis Davis. Sean Philip Davis. Jeffrey Anthony Del Papa. Ronald Edward DeRosa Jr. David James Dickinson. Casey Paul Finnegan. Sean Roy Furlong. Jonathan Edward Gibson. Charles Richard Hillman III. Mark Joseph Myko. William Howard Norman III. Kevin Allen Pappenfuss. Matthew Duncan Patriquin. Brian James Pemberton. Brian Thomas Petro Roy. Dennis Michael Phillips. Eric Patrick Porter. John Headley Powell. Jason Preventure. James Matthew Rhines. Mark Joseph Roy. Eric Ryan. Michael Joseph Scanlon Jr. Joseph William Sevigny. Christopher Donald Shattuck. James Patrick Spalding. Matthew Raymond St. Marie. Matthew Edward Tavano. Brian Joseph Therian. Paul David Tremblay Jr. Jose Antonio Vasquez Cruz. Graham Christopher Walsh. Nathan Corey Whitfelt. Philip Pokayu. And the distinguished president of the class of 1996, Deborah Lynn Sheehan.
Class 96, please move your tassels.
It is my pleasure and honor to present to you the graduates of Chelmsford High School's class of 1996. Congratulations. Please allow the recessional party to leave the stage by not blocking the aisles. All of you have a wonderful day. You deserve to be proud.
Thank you for suffering through this together. As I said, 15 years from now, 25 years from now. Take your stands back, please. Leave the clips on them. Put them into the band room somewhere out of the way, please. Thank you very much for coming. Oh, Jesus. I must feel like a sandwich. You found it. Yes. Thank you. You're getting rid of me. Is it official? It's going in?